Okay, are we ready to draw our next card? Let's see what we got here. It is another operations card. Now, this is one where it sometimes is helpful to look at a little bit further down the card before you actually make a decision in the operations segment, because you'll see that it says in the major event, it says if planning operation executed, that you get to look at the next 3 cards and rearrange them in any order desired at the top of the deck. That can be very, very helpful. So I think that's actually worth doing there. I'm not sure if we want to preempt here, because the enemy is only going to collect. I don't think preemption is going to help us a whole lot here. But I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and do it anyways. Let's go ahead and preempt. It might help us slightly. So we'll preempt by spending our 3 action points, which brings us down to 0. Notice that by preempting here, we are getting a back-to-back turn. So that can be really powerful at times, but I want to do a planning operation here. So let's look at the planning summary on the player aid card. Let's see here. I think it might be on the top, the number 1 panel. Yeah, there we go. Planning summary. First thing we do is place the population counter matching the current operations card into the passage of time box. You'll see that card number 14 here has an elder on it. So we draw an elder out of the out of play box and put him into the leftmost box on the elder display. Or excuse me, say elder display? Passage of time box. What am I doing? Sorry. Passage of time box. My bad. All right, next we collect 1 AP. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. Collect 1 AP for each elder on the elder display. So we have 3 elders on there, so we collect 3 action points. So we effectively got our 3 action points back. And next, each elder on the elder display may conduct 1 free elder action. You have to roll less than or equal to the elder rating to succeed. Now, there's a number of different things you can do with this. 1 elder action will allow you to, if you succeed, it allows you to take a military point and convert it into a culture point, or vice versa. It also allows you to adjust the ferocity of a family up or down by 1. And there's certain other benefits that can apply. If you, for example, if you lower the ferocity of a family and you are lacking in military points, there's an advantage. And at this point, I don't think it's really worthwhile to adjust our ferocity. One of the things...
You need to move them to the right first.
I don't think that it's worthwhile to do the any of the things where we're adjusting ferocity. Because at this point, the enemy hasn't really come at us, and they won't come at us till later. What that one is going to do, that is going to be really, really helpful later on in the game when the enemy's putting a lot of pressure on you, and you need to just slightly tweak the ferocity of a family. The 4th thing that you can do is you can add action points. So theoretically, each of those elders could generate 1 more AP on the action point track, which would be very helpful. So what we're going to do here is we've collected our 3 APs, and then all these elders slide to the right. If we had an elder over here in the rightmost box, they can't slide off the track. They would just simply stay there. The older the elder gets, the more powerful they become in terms of executing elder actions, but the more likely it is that they will die, because during a passage of time operation, you have to dice using the elder rating, and if you roll within the range of the elder rating during passage of time, the elder dies. So eventually, they gradually become more effective, but at some point you'll have to do a passage of time, and some of these guys will die. All right, so everybody moves over, and now we get to decide what are we going to do with these elders. Let's go ahead and start with the rightmost guy, and I think it's worthwhile to try to convert military points, or excuse me, culture points into military points. We have more culture than military right now, so we are allowed to sacrifice a culture point in order to gain a military point. So to do this, we'll roll for the guy on the right, and he rolls a 1, which is kind of a wasted roll of a 1. And the military point goes up, culture comes down. We can try that again for the guy in the middle. So let's go ahead and do that for the guy in the middle. He needs a 1 or a 2, and he rolls a 6 and whiffs. And lastly, we'll try it again with our guy on the left. He needs a 1, and he rolls a 6. So we were successful on one of those, but not on the other 2. Okay, now we go to adjust culture points here. Excuse me. Now we come to the point where the women can make trade goods. If culture points are greater than 0, each family with a woman may spend 1 action point to place a trade goods counter into the resources box. Right now we have 3 families. Each of them have a woman counter in it, so we can go ahead and generate 3 trade goods, and I think that's worthwhile to do because at some point we're going to need a reroll or to redraw or to buy animals like sheep. So we go to step 5. Each family with a man can spend an action point. Well, we're out of action points, so we're not going to be able to do this, but you can use this to conduct tribal warfare or tribal diplomacy. Each of those is a way by which you can take a Comanche instruction from the instruction display. If this was on the active column, you could dissuade them from attacking you and perhaps put them onto the standby column, thus swapping places with another instruction. All right, and you can do that in one of 2 ways. Diplomacy allows you to do it peacefully by a die roll, and warfare allows you to fight a battle and do it that way. Well, we're not going to do any of those from step 5, and now we come to step 6, which is the one thing that kind of hurts us a little bit here, and it is to reset the cubes. What we do here is we take all the cubes in the recovery box, and they go back into the bag. And then all the cubes in the rated cubes box go over to the recovery box. So that's how the cubes eventually cycle back into the bag. So that's one of the sacrifices of doing a planning operation is we effectively give the enemy a couple more APs to spend because we took those cubes out of the rated cubes box. And that's it. We're done. So now on to the enemy. All right. Let's see what the enemy is going to do here. Hang on a second here. I don't remember if I spent the APs. No, I didn't.
You need to spend the APs for the trade goods too. There you go.
Yeah, I thought I moved it down. I was switching between too many screens here. Okay, so now let's see what the enemy does. They're going to collect 4 APs because we preempted, plus 2 more for the subjugation of New Mexico box. So they're going to get 6 to work with. All right, we know they're not going to do any of those special conditions, so I'm kind of taking things out of order a little bit here, but they're not going to do any of the special conditions, so we collect the APs. Now we roll the dice twice, 1 and a 5, so 1 flips over. Oh no, here comes a raid, and the 5 will not flip over. So, okay, well this will be interesting. We're going to have a raid come at us, and so we're going to spend 3 action points per the cost of the raid, and we're going to generate raid counters here in Santa Fe equal to the APs that were spent. In the physical game, you just flip the AP counters over to show the raid side. In the module, you just click on the little turquoise button there in Santa Fe, and it generates them for you. They will get modifiers to that as per the enemy raid flowchart. So you want to look at this. You add bonus raid counters to Santa Fe from the available counter mix. You're going to add a raid counter for each point of ferocity of all the families on the map. So all of our families on the map, we sum up the red number on those counters, and that's how many extra raid counters are going to go over there. Oh, you know what? You're right. We raided New Mexico, so family A really ought to be higher. We rated him twice, so he actually is a Frosty 2 family. Okay. So they're going to get 2 more raid counters, so a total of 5 raid counters coming at us. Alright, raid is probably the most complex part of the game. Once you work through this flow chart, it's really it's something that's going to flow along pretty fast once you've done it a couple times. We'll go ahead and start up at the top at raid initiation. We've already pretty much done that. There are no forts here in the Spanish or Mexican period, so we can skip that. We come down here to raid counter placement. you're going to place either 1 or 2 enemy raid counters into a single area that does not already contain a raid counter, and which is either adjacent to a previously placed raid counter or to the Santa Fe area. Right now, the only place one of these guys could go is here. So we're going to place a raid counter here in the number 1 space of Shiprock. Okay, once a counter has been placed, the number of counters is you always place 1 unless the flowchart tells you to go with 2. You're going to place 2 counters if that area contained corn or a harass counter. And since area 1 of Shiprock didn't, we only placed 1 counter there. Next, the flowchart asks you, is the raid counter placed in Canyon de Chelly? And the answer was no. So we are allowed 1 reaction with 1 family. Here's where I really wish I had an action point. Now, here's where a tough choice comes in, because we could spend some trade goods to make an action point. The benefit to that would be that if we had 1 action point, we could put a harass counter down, and that would gobble up 2 of the remaining 4 counters. And it might allow us to get out of this thing unscathed. But I would have only a 50-50 chance of evading with family A. I'm going to go ahead and wait and not do any reactions at this time. And I'll show you why in just a moment. But if we had an action point to spend, here's where I would spend 1. And I'd put a harass counter down right in between family A and the raid counter. Because then the enemy would have to put 2 raid counters there in area 2 of Shiprock. Alright, so back to the flowchart. We're not going to do any player reaction. Ambush, negotiate, those are ways that you can protect a family from the raiders and possibly really cause the enemy a big setback with the ambush. But you have to spend action points to do those things, and we don't have any. The only reaction that's free is evasion, but you can only do that when the raid counter actually enters the area of a family, and that hasn't happened yet. So on to the next box on the flowchart. It asks, newly placed raid counter in same area as family, and the answer is no. Is there 0 raid counters in Santa Fe or 0 families on area tracks? The answer is no. So we come back over to raid counter placement. And once again, we look at that and we see that the next raid counter has to be placed in area 2 of Shiprock. And now we have the opportunity to do another reaction. Now again, in order to do something here, we'd have to spend an action point. We don't have any to spend unless I spent trade goods to generate an action point. It costs, I think, 2 trade goods to do so. We're not going to do that. So let's go ahead and it's going to cycle back around, and now we come to a fork in the road. So when we get back to the raid counter placement, it's going to say if the raid counter could go in more than one direction, place the raid counter into the area which is closer to the nearest, in terms of movement points, area containing a family counter. Right now, family B is actually closer to the raid than family A because family B is in an area with a movement cost of 1. So family B is going to be the target. And since there's a corn counter in there, 2 raid counters must be placed. So we're going to go ahead and place 2 raid counters. And now we can do our evasion attempt. So we're going to roll a die to evade with family B. And we can do that since the raid counters have actually entered the area. And we're going to add the family B's evasion modifier +2. And ideally, what I'd like to do here, I'd like to end up in area 2 of San Juan Valley, but I don't know. All right, we rolled a 5. That's the case where I rolled too high. I didn't want to roll quite that high because it's going to throw me all the way back to the back of this track. And it's hard to grow corn back there, and it's hard to move back there, so yeah, I got away from the raiders, but it really disrupted that family. And it's going to kill that corn counter since there is no family located there. We'll hold off on destroying the corn for now. All right, and just to make sure that that's clear, I rolled a 5, which is modified by +2, and since the roll was higher than the area value that I'm in, it ends up on the area in the same territory with an area value equal to the die roll. If you rolled higher than a 6, if the modified result is higher than a 6, then you end up on the 6th space. If you roll a natural unmodified 6, you can actually jump from where you are to any area in the Canyon de Chelly. So that's how you can just bounce to the canyon, and that's a way that you can really get away from an enemy. But you want to be careful with that too, because again, Canyon de Chelly can end up being a trap. All right, so the enemy's got one more counter to place, and it's obvious where it's going to go. There's a fork in the road because the enemy raid counter could go here, or it could go here. The point is, this area, area number 3 of Shiprock, is closer to a family than area 2 of San Juan Valley. Area 2 of San Juan Valley is what, 11, 15, 18 movement points away from family B. So it's going to go into area number 3 of Shiprock, and now that family has a decision to make. We can try to evade. We could try to, we could spend trade goods to get an action point, and then spend the action point to ambush and fight a battle. That might be fun. I'm inclined to actually do that so we can show how a battle works. So let's go ahead and do that. This is probably not smart tactics, but we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to spend trade goods, and let me just confirm that I'm spending the right amount of trade goods, because I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. There is a trade goods summary somewhere here. Should have gotten the physical charts out, sorry. If anyone has the charts and wants to shout that out to me, I don't remember how much it is. There we are. Okay, it's going to be 2 trade goods to add 1 AP. So we'll get that 1 AP, we spent 2 trade goods, and then we're going to immediately spend that action point so that we can do an ambush. Alright, probably a dumb idea, but we'll go ahead and do it anyways. Here's how this works. We're going to fight a battle. Now to fight a battle, each of us is going to roll, when I say us, me and the enemy, we're going to roll a die roll, each of us. And the procedure is found on the battle table. And what we're going to do is we roll for us first. Roll for the Dene first, and you modify it using die roll modifiers. You add the ferocity of the family, or double the family's ferocity if executing an ambush reaction, but you never double more than the actual area value. So because we're doing an ambush, we'll double the area's value, but we can't go higher than 3. So, well, I'm sorry, we're doubling the ferocity of the family, but we can't go higher than a +3. Because we're doing this in area 3. To get the maximum effect out of a ferocity 3 family, for example, you'd have to do an ambush in area 6 of one of these territories. And that's not always easy to arrange. If you can set it up, you're probably going to clobber that enemy, but it's hard to lure them back into those more remote areas. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a total of +3 for my modified ferocity because I'm doing an ambush. I have a family with a horse in the family box, so that's going to be another +1. So we're going to be a total of +4. Manuelito's family only happens during the American period, so that's not going to apply, and we don't have firearms to spend. That would give us another +2. So we're going to be at net +4. The enemy is going to modify theirs according to the placement of the ferocity counter on the general records track, which is also +4, so we're basically even up against one another. So it's let's just hope we get lucky here. Well, that's about as bad as I could possibly roll. Let's see what the enemy does. I'd give a lot to be able to reverse that, because that would have been a successful ambush and would have really clobbered the enemy, but we lost the battle hideously. What we do now is we take the differential between our die rolls, our modified die rolls, and we don't have to really modify them because the modifiers are both the same. So a 1 minus 5 is a net of -4. And we look at the battle table, and the battle occurs in area 3 or 4. So we're going to we're looking at a major enemy victory. What does that do? Nothing good, I can tell you that. It's going to remove the man, any horse from the family out of play, and wow. So here we go. Oh, wow, this is bad. So we lost the man, we lost the horse. Okay, if possible, place any one additional population counter from the family into passage of time box. So now we got to take a family counter out of here. Yeah, this family is going to be wiped out basically. So we'll put the children in here. We'll let the kids get away. I'm going to blame this on the die roll generator here in Vassal. All right, now the family's ferocity is going to go to 0, obviously, because the man is died. So let's see, decrease. All right, ferocity down to 0. +1 enemy morale. That's no good either. So the enemy morale just went up. So we go to the general records track. They climbed up. Early on in the game, this might be a backbreaker. I don't know. I told you it wasn't probably a good strategy to do this. If I had firearms, I think that would have been a good strategy. But without firearms, this was risky. All right, and then -2 to the enemy ferocity. That means next time I fight a battle, they're going to be way overconfident because they just smoked my hiney. So, wow. The notation for fighting versus a tribe doesn't apply here. We were fighting an enemy, not a tribe. And then the counter goes into the caught box here, which will be important in just a moment. Okay. Well, that was just horrible. Back to the flow chart. Now we were in the player reaction area, so now we come over to the next box. It says newly place raid counter in same area as a family. The answer is no. Family is now in the caught box. Next we come up and it says 0 raid counters in Santa Fe. That is true. So we go up to the raid ends box. We will place an outpost. And it'll be a mission during the Spanish period in area number 1 of each territory that contains a raid counter and no family counter. But we do take the contents of the caught escape boxes into consideration here. Because there is a family still in the caught box here of Shiprock, we will not place a mission. Number 2, we flip all, if any, remaining raid counters in Santa Fe and spend to execute subvert instruction. That's something that almost never happens. It's there to deal with some oddball things that could occur. You're almost never going to have that happen. Number 3, you remove all raid and harass counters from areas. So all these go away. All right. The corn should go away. Let's get that out of there. Return to the draw cut. And all families on escape boxes with at least 1 adult, the men and women are considered adults, are placed into an area in that territory with any Frosty desired. Obviously, it's got to have to be Frosty 0 because all we have is a woman in here. And even if we set it up to Frosty 3 during the discard phase, it would go back down. So, all right, we'll put that lady by herself right over here. And yeah, that was just horrible. I'm sorry, I skipped a box here. Enemy morale is -1 if no family in any caught box. Otherwise, the enemy gets +1 morale for each family in a caught box. So they're going to get one more, one more morale here. So that was, that was a disaster. Wow. Okay. And all of that started because of rolling a 1 as the random thing for flipping over these counters. Okay. Well, let's see if any more hideous things can happen here. The enemy has 3 APs to spend, and the next instruction costs 3. So we pull 3 cubes out, and please no red. Thank you. No red. Counters are pulled. Okay, we reset the display. And we go to the major event, which is cool for us because now we can look at the deck And we can look at the top 3 cards and rearrange them in any order that we desire. So let's see what we got here. Well, that's not what I was hoping to see. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rearrange these so that we're going to do a ceremony, operation, and a ceremony. But I'm going to reverse it. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to make it so that we draw the. I'll make it that we draw the 3 first. So I'll put this guy back on top, this one in the middle, and this one next. And minor event, we roll to see which territory recovers from drought. And we roll a 6, which is not a territory that contains drought, nor is it adjacent to a territory that contains drought. So it has 0 impact whatsoever. And looks like I'm rolling about par for the course here. By the way, if any of you missed the Hunters demo, I had unprecedented luck during that demo. I still haven't had patrols like I had during that demo. So it's not always bad for me, but I think I might have wore out a lot of luck on that demo. Okay, any questions so far before I move on and see where this adventure takes us next?